Hi, I'm Ryan Biles, and I'm excited to welcome you to our Lonoke Leadership Lunches series. In this series, we're building leaders with awareness, and we invite you to come join us, learn from these leaders that we'll be featuring in each of these talks. Whether you join us in person right here in Lonoke or here online, we want you to learn something and then talk to us about what you have learned. Let's interact together. Join us on Facebook at Lunch in Lonoke or email us at lunchinlonoke@gmail.com. Glad you've joined us today. We're going to hear from Mike Winslow. He's the Manager of Strategic Innovations at Arkansas Blue Cross and Blue Shield. He has a lot to talk about today. I've learned from Mike for many years, and I know that you will learn something from him as well. Thanks for joining us. Our whole goal in this series, as we've gathered together, has been to develop and build leaders with awareness. And that goal has been talked about by all of our guests as we've gathered together in these last several months. Today we wanted to come with a different format, something that you can take with you on the go, a conversation that I think you'll find relevant and interesting during this time that we're in. Mike's going to talk to us a little bit about, again, leading in times of uncertainty. And Mike himself, he's been a leader in a variety of contexts. As a student many years ago, you've been a leader of students in the recent past. Mm-hmm. You're a leader of your family. You've been married to Becca for almost 15 years.
15 years.
And week. Dad to Layla and Nate. Yeah. And he's a leader of teams. He's the manager of strategic innovations at Arkansas Blue Cross and Blue Shield, which is a role that you've really found pretty fascinating, interesting, and has stretched you, but also really worked within, I believe, your strengths as a person and as a leader. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts today as you talk to our leaders who are in the audience today about your experience and your thoughts on how leaders can lead in times of uncertainty.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan. Glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. My role as a manager at Arkansas Blue Cross is unique because I actually don't have any direct reports. I'm a manager of none, and my team includes myself, a manager of business transformation, and a manager of strategic investments. And so we have an approach to transformation and innovation at Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield that requires us to be very collaborative with the other business units and the folks who are actually doing the work. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to look back over my time there and see how working with developers, people who write code and work on the software applications that we use at Blue Cross, and interacting with them and learning how they think and learning how they work. And then now I'm in a role where I'm leading programs or projects that ask them to do work, and they don't report to me. So there is an element of understanding that you have to be collaborative in spirit, mm-hmm. and that I'm not demanding this work of you, but we are going to do it together. And some of the things that I've learned, because I'm coming up on a year in this position, so I'm still wet behind the ears, or I call myself a rookie manager. I'm learning how to communicate to the folks that I'm asking work to be done. And a lot of times I've seen that communication is the primary factor about how you paint the picture of what the future can look like, and who needs to be responsible and accountable and consulted and informed using the RACI matrix. That's something that in the past I thought was just mumbo jumbo project management lingo, but I've actually leaned on that recently for the next phase of a project I'm working on at work. And so understanding who would benefit from knowing what information, and then how is that information delivered, has been really important in terms of strategic innovation and big projects and things that are real kind of fuzzy, squishy, nebulous, and trying to get some more concrete formed around it. One thing that has really helped me understand how to work with others and how to interact is emotional intelligence. And a lot of us, our IQ is what it is, and there's not a whole lot you can do to change that. Now, I'm sure that as time goes on and we learn how to hack our brains a little bit better, that'll improve. But as I understand it, and from the things that the training I've received about emotional intelligence, is that you can increase your emotional intelligence. It's a learned behavior. So if you aren't familiar with emotional intelligence and any sort of training in that regard, then I would highly encourage you to look into that, because it really helps in terms of that 360-degree leadership, whether you're leading down to folks you're asking work to be done, whether you're leading your peers, or whether you're leading up. You need to be able to demonstrate that if you're leading up, that I'm capable of taking this on. You need to demonstrate to your peers that I can be trustworthy and you can lean on me. And you need to be the folks that you're leading down, who are doing the work that you're asking them to do. They need to know that you have a clear picture of the future,
right,
and that you can get them there, and that you will resource them appropriately.
And that's 100% true. And one of the big reasons that from the beginning I've wanted you to be a part of these talks and these events that we're doing together at Lonoke Leadership Lunches is because you're one of the more probably one of the most emotionally intelligent people that I've encountered. And, we've known each other for quite a long time. So I actually know that to be true. It's not something I've observed from a distance. And in fact, you've trained me. And one of the earliest things, you know what I'm going to say, one of the earliest things you taught me was the ETA principle, which I think I'm going to say we just made this up on our own. I'll credit you. I actually do credit you.
It's my wife, actually. I stole
it from her. Perfect. Okay, so it's in the family at least.
Yeah.
But ETA is a little code that we've developed, and I promise you it works, but it's embrace the awkwardness, right? Just, you will be in situations where you're gonna, most people think of it as, well, I gotta make small talk with somebody. Or it's the person you see coming that's like, I really don't want to have this conversation. I don't know what we're gonna talk about.
Yeah.
This is a room I'm not familiar with. This is a room I don't like to be in. But you know what? I mean, just ETA, embrace the awkwardness, and realize, look, people are valuable. Everybody has value. Everybody matters.
Yeah.
And this is a moment of your time. Your time is valuable as well. So leverage what you have in this moment to give an emotionally intelligent response and engaging response to the person who's directly in front of you, and just embrace it. And yeah, it might be awkward. And you might be really glad when it's over with, but don't shy away from it.
Right.
Just embrace it. And you have taught me that, or Becca has taught me that through you.
Yeah.
And I carry that with me all the time. And but the kind of the inverse of that is, I don't want to be an awkward person for someone else to talk to. I don't want someone who would normally be really engaging to be like, oh, this guy's coming and he's always talking about this weird stuff. I don't know what that means. I got to think, out of respect for the other person, okay, what do they want to know about? What do they want to get out of this moment? And then be emotionally available for those who you can be responsive in that way to folks. Not create an awkward situation as well. Not create a situation of discomfort when you're with someone. So right. It goes both ways, but it does take that EI, that emotional intelligence, to be highly aware of that, which is what we're really trying to work on together.
One of our learning and development consultants at Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield, we have a department of folks who help train and do executive coaching. And, they teach on emotional intelligence or leading by example and all those sorts of things. And one lady I've worked with, she's so precise with assessing how a team is interacting, or how you might be, where you might need to improve an area to adjust your leadership style. She's so good at it. And one of the things that I've learned from her is, what gift can I give this person?
That's good.
In this moment.
That's really good.
So whether you're on the elevator, riding up to your floor to go to work, or you're passing somebody in the parking deck, or whatever.
Yeah.
when you interact with someone, you can either leave them with a gift, or you can leave them with something that leaves a bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah.
And especially in parenting, I've noticed that
Mm-hmm.
that's a really a fun approach to our kids. Is that it's ultimately it's not about me. If we're really thinking in light of eternity and just in this short period of time we have as life together, what gift can I give my kids
Right.
to equip them and empower them? So that's been something that's stuck with me.
It becomes a stewardship question at that point.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
It's like I've got this moment or this series of moments of undetermined length for an undetermined duration.
Yep.
And so I have to be faithful in those moments. And that's a stewardship issue, particularly with family, but with any relationship that you've been given.
One of the ways that I curate my relationships, especially at work, is just checkpointing, and I'll use that word, and I'm checking pulse, and I'll ask somebody. There's a guy that I work with on a project, and it could be seen as I'm taking over some of his turf. But eventually what will happen once this project has been implemented, it kind of falls in his lap to now then handle the operations of it. And so it's almost as if I'm getting to do the cool fun stuff, and then I hand it off to him when it's not fun anymore.
Which is a great place to be and a really difficult place to be at the same time.
Right, because sometimes my role, and I am seen as the guy who gets to go kind of stir things up, and then other people are left with the wake. So I'm very aware of that. With this particular coworker, I told him from the beginning, hey, I want to be in step with you. I want to be aligned, and I want to collaborate. I don't at all want to step on your toes, and I don't want this to be about turf.
Right.
Can we do this together?
Yeah.
And he committed to me. And so every once in a while, I will check in and say, hey, man, just checking pulse. Just want to know if on that last phone call, if I overstepped my bounds, or did I say anything that made you uncomfortable?
And what I hear in that is you practicing the ETA principle, which is
Absolutely.
This could be difficult, this could be awkward in the future. I'm going to go ahead and state from the outset, I understand this dynamic,
Right.
or this is the way I understand it. How do you see it? Go ahead and tell me. I'm going to set the table for this to be a continuous, ongoing conversation, so that when the day comes when we make this transition that we know is coming, that we had never talked about it, or that there are hard feelings because I didn't communicate early. So
Right.
communicating earlier is a way of kind of embracing that awkwardness before it even ever occurs.
Yeah. And if you set the stage for a checkpoint or checking pulse or whatever you want to call it, you have to be ready for the awkwardness of, no, Mike, actually, what you said was really, it was insensitive, or, that's actually going to create a lot of work for my team.
Right.
So you have to be ready to receive that. And you could have done your darndest to be genuine and sincere and really trying to be careful with your words and be very strategic, and it still blow up. And
Yes.
So you have to be okay with the fact that that's going to happen. You're going to miscommunicate, and it's have you built the bridge prior to that moment that you can still finish getting across it.
Yes.
Based on the relationship that you have built.
That's really important.
Yeah.
That's really important. And I'm glad you said that, because the kind of the key factor I'm hearing is humility, right? It just takes an extraordinary level of humility to, first of all, be genuine about the relationships that you're building. But then secondly, to have this two-way conversation with the person you're in relationship with, where they are free to tell you that this that you believe exists doesn't exist. No one else sees it the way you're seeing it.
Right.
You have been proceeding as though it does exist, and we're here to tell you that it doesn't. But we feel comfortable telling you this.
Yeah.
That's when humility really kicks in, and you have to receive that, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about this aspect of becoming a health solutions partner.
Okay. So we believe that the retailization of the healthcare system, and as a health payer, working with providers of healthcare, and working with our members, we want to be member-centric
Mm-hmm.
or patient-centric
Mm-hmm.
or customer-centric.
Right.
And a lot of times that's an afterthought. And so for us, and what it means for me right now in terms of project focus and what I'm working on today, we are efforting toward completely developing a new digital experience platform.
Mm-hmm.
So it's our member-facing mobile app and web and desktop member portal. So those things are, like how do I access my claims and what's my deductible and who's my pediatrician and all those things. Those are the transactional elements that we're working to implement. We have a platform now, but it's not extensible. We can't plug and play these other solutions that we think would help differentiate not only ourselves in the market, but also give our customers and our members tools to better manage their health.
Mm-hmm.
So we need a new platform. So those transactional things will be there. But what we see the opportunity for the future is that if someone needs specific chronic, acute care for a particular condition, then we have a solution to help them manage that and get healthier.
Mm-hmm.
If a member or customer has a behavioral health need, we want to have a channel, a touch point, a way to engage with that member, that customer who needs who needs behavioral health help.
Mm-hmm.
So right now our platform kind of looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
Our new platform is going to look like this.
Mm-hmm.
And we can add things to it.
So structurally, that makes a lot of sense, but I think there's a lot of application here too. You talk about being member-centric, customer-centric. I'm sure that applies to a lot of the folks who are listening and watching, because we all have a clientele of some sort.
Right.
Even when you're in a nonprofit, you have those you're serving.
Yep.
If you're in the public sector, you have constituents that you're responsible to.
Yep.
If you're selling a product, you have a customer base at some point. And so being, we'll just say, people-centric,
Mm-hmm.
really ties back to this aspect of being a leader with awareness. So you can't be people-centric in your environment if you aren't aware of the needs of your members or your customers.
That's
right.
That's very true, because so there's a executive vice president of Wonderman Thompson Health. His name is Lindsay Resnick, and he spoke at a healthcare conference, he was talking in the context of multi-generational healthcare delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And he said 4 things that are really kind of the driving principles for how we design our platform and how we want to engage with our members. So he said, members want you to, or your customers want you to know me, help me, motivate me, and then you'll keep me.
Mm-hmm.
So from a sales cycle perspective, if you can do those first 3 things, then
Mm-hmm.
you'll have retention.
Mm-hmm.
If from once you've sold them and you want to maintain their lifetime customer value,
Mm-hmm.
then if you can maintain doing those 3 things throughout the customer journey or the customer life cycle, then you'll maintain their stickiness as a customer.
Mm-hmm.
So those 4 things really help me understand if we're going to make a digital platform, something that's just code and screens and user experience design.
Right.
If we really want to make it personal, then we have to have those empathetic qualities
That's good.
built into that digital experience.
That's really good.
So
This creative work is probably more in line with who you are as a person than anything that you've done in the recent past. So you're a musician. So there's an aspect of being a musician that certainly is a creative art, right? And it's iterative.
Mm-hmm.
It's generative.
Yep.
You have a set of rules that you live by, that you bend all the time because you can, because you are the musician, right? So you use one of my favorite words, but you use it naturally because you're a musician. Use the word cadence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which there are just cycles and seasons to life that once a leader understands that, I think we can be much more responsive to the groups and the people that we're leading.
Yep.
But when you talk about respecting cycles and respecting rhythms, and you talk about a creative process within a framework of rules, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that's why you in this position are really thriving, and why this really hits on, I think, a lot of your strengths. Within that, I love the aspect of working and living within a set of rules, but being really innovative within that framework.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us can get to where maybe what we do is mundane. Maybe what we do is repetitive. Maybe it's difficult to see the ability to lead within perhaps a relatively uninspiring environment. But there's a way in which we as leaders can just create moments that are inspiring. Even if it's for the benefit of others, I think we can end up inspiring ourselves as well.
Right.
As
you were talking, that leading for others, it reminded me of, there's this quote, Zig Ziglar. I'm not like a huge fan. I haven't read all his books, but one of the things that he said that stuck with me is one of the greatest joys in life is making others' wishes come true,
right,
or others' dreams come true,
right.
And that's been really fun. It stuck with me in this new role because, at a legacy organization where a lot of people stick around for decades, you never know who might be your boss,
right?
Or you never know who you might be their boss.
Yes.
And so it's just a general rule of thumb to always play nice. But
yes,
what's been interesting is that I joined a team for a short period of time because I had always wanted to work for this team, and then the role that I'm in now came available, and so I was only on this team for about 11 months. And there was a guy who was my peer, and then very soon he was promoted to be my boss. And if I had not taken the time to really be collaborative and work with him and demonstrate that, anybody can be my boss, I'm going to do good work regardless, then I think it would have made it more difficult for him, because not only was he younger than me, he had less tenure at the organization than me. And so he knew there was this sense of awkwardness of, maybe I wasn't so deserving, but in terms of his career path, it made sense for him.
Well, and thankfully you had an awareness of anything's possible here in this relationship. I have to maintain the integrity of the relationship, maintain the health of the relationship. And you spoke about the gentleman earlier who set a framework of multi-generational effects. Multi-generational by nature, we're not really going to see the effects of today's actions in the future, but we have to trust that they will have an effect, and therefore we govern our actions based on that anticipated reality.
Right.
Even though we don't control it and probably won't see it, we just control our response right now. And it's interesting that you were certainly acting with awareness there to say, look, this relationship is important.
Yeah.
I'm going to genuinely engage, and I don't know what happens next. And as it turns out, what happened next has an impact on the role that you play.
This guy who ultimately became my boss was then very inspirational for me taking this role that I'm in now.
Excellent.
He encouraged me to take it, and then in the role that I'm in now, I work very collaboratively with him to achieve some of his objectives. And so in the back of my mind, a long-term goal for me would be to solve a problem that he has in our organization that he's trying to solve for, and doing what I can to position our resources and our initiatives to solve that problem, not just for him because he's a buddy,
right,
but because it is a legitimate need that we need to solve in our organization.
And the two of you are also both setting up your divisions for whoever succeeds you in your roles will have a division or a team that's in a healthier place as well.
Absolutely.
That's also long-term thinking that you don't control that. You just control what you do today to set the stage for tomorrow, which is really interesting. Well, I'm grateful for your perspective on leading in times of uncertainty. We shared a quote on the Lonoke Leadership Lunches Facebook page recently from Andy Stanley, who is one of my favorites. And Andy talks about organizational leadership and says, in times of disruption, clarity is the next best thing to certainty. And that resonates with me because I feel like when you are in a place, in an environment that you cannot control anything but your response. You're going to go one direction or another. And I love the aspect of let's just return to what we know.
Yeah.
Let's embrace this moment, be a good steward of this moment, but we know it's not certain.
Right.
So we're going to be clear about it. We're going to communicate well. And you talked about stirring things up. And I just have this sense that for all the fun there could be in stirring things up, there's also a responsibility to build back.
Yep.
Because ultimately, if it's a people-centered mission, or if it's a people-centered application or project or a relationship, which is inherently people-centered, you always have to be thinking about whatever I disrupt, I've got to be committed to building it back over time, constantly, consistently, and again with clarity. I appreciate you. I appreciate your example. I'm thankful for the time that you've spent with us today. Always inspired by that, but I'm particularly inspired by how applicable the way you lived your life has prepared you for the role that you have right now. Because I think that's part of your kind of key to excellence in what you're doing today. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our audience is grateful, I'm sure, and we're grateful to them for joining us today. So before we go, what are you listening to? Podcast?
Okay.
And what are you reading?
Okay. I'm reading an audiobook.
Which counts, by the way. That counts.
It does. I'm an auditory learner. I'm a drummer. I have to hear things and then I can learn them.
It's good.
So I'm listening to AI Superpowers by Kai-Fu Lee. He's an investor and many times over CEO in China. He's a very interesting guy and he's very compassionate. He has some TED Talks out there that would be interesting to.
Okay, excellent. We can link to those.
Yeah,
awesome.
That AI Superpowers book is talking a lot about how China is so much more advanced in terms of artificial intelligence and computer vision than the United States, and it's an interesting take, and he has lots of examples.
It's compelling.
Yeah. And then listening to podcast-wise, Biotech Nation, and I cannot remember the name of the host, but they have these short segments about companies or products that are innovative in the healthcare or biotech space. So it's some of the real cool tip of the spear, bleeding edge type technology that's...
You're listening to learn right now.
Yes, I'm a sponge, and I've tried to be a sponge for the last year and a half with the role that I'm in now, because I could be one day in a meeting with our CEO and our EVP, special counsel to the CEO, and our VP of population health, who's been a family practitioner for longer than I've been alive. And the next day I could be in a meeting with programmers and API developers who are trying to make our system architecture under the hood work.
Yeah. So it's that 360-degree leader. Right?
Yes.
Excellent. Mike, thanks for your time today. We
Thank you.
really appreciate it.